Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 1v1 on Outer Reaches. Our first player is Lieutenant Ekul, or Ekul, as this Farseer. I was going to say Force Command. This Eldar Farseer. She is a support hero, relatively uncommon these days. She mainly focuses on buffing her own troops, debuffing other troops. She also has some disabling abilities, like her new Psychic Storm ability, her Gravity Blade, as well as Mind War. Ekul's opponent is Kvek, playing as this Freebooters Warboss. I like the special voices that the Freebooters Warboss has. He kind of talks like a pirate. But the Warboss is a tanky melee hero. He disrupts, he runs, he gets angry. He can get a Power Claw, which I think kind of cuts off his hand. Maybe not. But he's a pretty cool hero. Has some good global buffs. And I like his Orky Cutlass that he gets from being a freebooter pirate. So, this is a game that was sent to me by Kvek. He said it was actually a training for, it was supposed to be a training game for newer players, and we actually see a lot of observer chat, or just a lot of chat in general, and talking about stuff. But then Kvek sent me the game. It turned out to be pretty good. I think Lieutenant Ekul is a relatively newer player. There have been a few times when he asked me to play, in fact. Kvek is just like a dude. So, double victory point cap for Ekul, but he kind of just retreated there. Maybe that may have been a little premature, but I guess he saw that he may have been overwhelmed. Shooter Boy is kind of closing in, but he could have maybe just moved. He could have moved his Dire Avengers into support. May have just retreated there prematurely because he basically didn't even fight. Maybe with some guide there. What he could have done was maybe use guide on the Farseer, have the Farseer charge into one of the Shooter Boys and tie them up, especially considering right now they do not have their big shooters. So they really won't be able to stop the Farseer, or the Banshees for that matter, from getting into melee. Although this enhanced custom shooter from the Warboss might actually prevent her from getting into melee. That enhanced custom shooter, probably the least commonly seen warrior upgrade, or the least commonly seen weapon upgrade you see for the Warboss. Because it's mainly a ranged weapon, does not improve his melee damage at all, although it does give him very good range damage, especially now in the Elite mod. It was already fairly good in retail, but it's even better now. Now, Ekul is, I think, definitely caught him hiding a little bit, and he's blobbing these unupgraded Dire Avengers a bit. So far, no aspects, but we do see him going for the aspect of strength. This, unfortunately, not a great position for this Guardian weapon team. Now, he does have his Banshees acting as a bodyguard for the Guardian weapon team, which is certainly the right thing to do. Actually comes very close to wiping those Slugger Boys, but positioning of that Guardian weapon team wasn't quite great. And he might take out the Warboss, though, and he does, in fact, take out the Warboss. So with that Guardian weapon team, I guess I'd say you probably shouldn't just move it around right with all your Dire Avengers. Move the Dire Avengers up front. Keep that Guardian weapon team in the back, basically as insurance. Right there, we saw the Warboss just kind of caught all of these units in a position where he could basically just charge into all of it. And I mean, he did die in the end, but he did also get in on all that stuff. One of the things that Ekul was doing right, though, was that he did have his Howling Banshees by the Guardian weapon team. You should definitely keep your Howling Banshees by the Guardian weapon team. One of the main ways that you use Howling Banshees is as a bodyguard for the Guardian weapon team. Howling Banshees, as a relatively squishy melee unit, you generally don't want to just run them straight forward into range fire, especially not against double big shooters. And not to mention, one squad also has a shooter knob. And in fact, one has a shooter knob with no big shooters. But regardless, this is an Orc Blob with a lot of damage, a lot of range DPS, also a lot of melee DPS right now, and this will probably be a full gen farm wipe for the Orcs. Ekul will not get there in time, so I think he should try to return the favor, and he is having that instinct. Now he is going to try to use his Dire Avengers and his Howling Banshees to bash. Meanwhile, he's going to bring the Guardian Weapon team over here. Now this is risky. If that Guardian Weapon team gets jumped, and he's also moving it way too far forward. If it gets jumped now, that's very dangerous. And if the Sluggers were better positioned, they could also really threaten to take out that Guardian Weapon team. That might still be a dead Guardian Weapon team. And yes, it is. So I actually saw the risk that could have happened right there, and exactly what I was afraid of did actually happen. And of course, that's part of how you learn. Experience is generally the best teacher. And one of the ways you really learn to not to do something is when really something really bad happens because you did something. Ekul has he's returned most of the Gen Bash. Kvek is already putting up new generators. Grenades going in. Unfortunately, that grenade not going to quite work. Now, what Ekul needs to do, he needs to retreat. I was going to say he should move his units down a little bit more, make sure they don't end up retreating over up here, and make sure they retreat down here. Just the way the retreat paths are, you really need to be careful about retreating when you're up in this area that I'm focusing in on right now. Since if you get the wrong retreat path, whether it's down here or through here, whether you get one that is not favorable for you, you can risk losing an entire squad, and that can, particularly on this map, you can lose the entire game just out of that. So, Kvek going for another Gen Bash. Ekul needs to go ahead and intercept. I think he should just put battle equipment on his second Dire Avenger squad. Will give him a lot of power to wipe these units on retreat. That's, of course, one of the great assets that Eldar have, and one of the things that can be really tough about playing against good Eldar players is that you really just there's so much risk of losing entire squads in retreat from grenades. So like right here, we should see grenades, we should see Howling Banshees chasing. Unfortunately, no grenades yet. He's fleeting, but he needs to do a grenade. He does throw a grenade right there, but ends up nading his own Banshees a little bit. Now, you have to be careful with those retreat grenades or when you're retreating, because he was chasing after them. Unfortunately, when a unit is in retreat, it actually starts gaining more speed the longer it is in retreat. So there, the Slugger Boys started running even faster, and that made it a lot harder to time a retreat grenade.
Hostile orcs are claiming a victory.
So, one of the things with Eldar, you need to have that sort of awareness that basically when it seems like an engagement is about to go in your favor and that your opponent is going to retreat, basically getting ready to throw those grenades. Of course, it's hard to think through all of these things when you're playing, but part of what happens as a consequence of experience, whenever you're learning something with experience, is that is not necessarily that you think through all of the things that you should be doing and you come out with all the right decisions, but just based on experience, you anticipate, you know what to expect, what can happen, and you prepare for that possibility. Warboss now has the Cyborg implants, improves his stomp. Now the big stomp, this is an upgrade that I don't play the Warboss that much, but it's an interesting upgrade. Now, one of the disadvantages to the big stomp is that it's actually quite a bit slower than the regular stomp, and it's slower than the regular stomp despite having actually exactly the same range. So, despite it being a big stomp, it has the exact same range. The advantages to the big stomp are that it stuns for an amount of time. And that's going to be dead Slugger Boys. Even with Ard Boys, that should be dead Sluggers, and Kvek loses those Sluggers. But that big stomp, it stuns, which is really good, especially later on against units like Terminators that cannot retreat. And it also does explosive damage instead of melee damage, which actually, for the most part, is probably a little inconsequential. I guess you could try killing a vehicle that's nearly dead with the big stomp. But otherwise, I'd say that's actually a fairly inconsequential thing. Now here, again, this is a time when we should see grenades coming, and at least an attempt of a grenade, and unfortunately we don't see it. And, you know, at this point, I really think we should have double grenades, double battle equipment on those Dire Avengers, because especially there, with 2 well-timed grenades, that could be a wipe on that entire Shooter Boy squad. New generators go down for Ekul. Now, Ekul, maybe he's more concerned about the possibility of having to deal with a vehicle such as maybe a war truck or a Death Dread out of Kvek, which is certainly a legitimate concern, and he might want to be careful about over-investing in basically in things that are not vehicle counters when he may need to worry about a vehicle counter coming up, or a vehicle coming up. He does have the Warp Spiders out. Warp Spiders, in general, a very safe purchase for Eldar. They do very good range damage, so they're pretty good. Just their range damage is good against any race, even against power armor races, just because the base DPS of Warp Spiders is so high that they will still be good even against units like Tactical Marines or Chaos Space Marines. Upgraded Chaos Space Marines with the Mark of Tzeentch will definitely counter the Warp Spiders, but they will still do a lot of damage to the Chaos Space Marines. Looks like engagement is about to happen right here. There's that ability that comes from the Rune Armor in the Elite mod, suppressing and doing damage. Meanwhile, we had a stun from the Weird Boy's Warp Bomb, and now that Weird Boy needs to be extremely careful, and since Kvek does not want to lose that Weird Boy, he does put Ard Boys on the Weird Boy to save him, and now the Banshees are in trouble. They're in trouble. They're going to die. Yes. So unit losses on both sides. Howling Banshees go down. A Bomber Boy caught that Howling Banshee when it looked like it was going to retreat. Meanwhile, Kvek lost a Shooter Boy squad, and even more unit loss is going to happen right here.
Before the enemy strikes.
Warp Spiders are pretty good as a melee counter, since once a unit will get in range, they will just teleport out of there. This could actually be the worst. They do teleport out. I mean, they do teleport out of there and actually take out the Storm Boys. They even got stunned, but 4 models got stunned, and then the 1 Warp Spider model that did not get stunned actually took out that last Storm Boy model. And Ekul going for it, double Warp Spiders. It's definitely a very mean build against orcs. Warp Spiders, I'd say very good against pretty much any race, but especially good against orcs. Orcs, they bleed horribly. Their members, the members of most of their starting squads, die so easily. And I mean, then they just bleed a lot from that. Looks like Ekul now using some warp gates. He's going to bring his Warp Spiders and his Dire Avengers right here. He can definitely get off a nice little Gen Bash over here. The Warboss will get countered by all of what Ekul has right now. If he uses Guide on his Warp Spiders, he's going to be really destroying that Warboss. And the Warboss tries to go for a big stomp, but not a good time for it at all. Cancels it and retreats. Overwhelming map control for Ekul right now.
One less generator feeds our enemies.
We stand upon newly gained ground. One less generator feeds our enemies.
Ekul now with a double cap. I think he should actually have his Farseer go cap this bottom point to give himself a triple cap, especially since Kvek, knowing that he's not going to be able to really fight what Ekul's got right now, is playing the passive-aggressive war, going for, well, not going for the back cap. He's actually bashing with his Weird Boy. I thought he was going to back cap this point. And especially now, Ekul's just idling with a lot of these units. He only needs one of those units to capture that power node. He is getting some overwhelming map control, but I think his Farseer or even any other unit should have gotten on that point a little quicker. Please put battle equipment on these Dire Avengers. Alright, it's actually the aspect of the Avenger right now. This Weird Boy has to be very careful.
No place is barred to us.
Farseer, though, she has to be really careful. Alright, luckily he moves her up. That was actually the right choice, and he used Fleet of Foot. If he had just tried to retreat her, I think he would have actually lost the Farseer, taking melee hits from the Warboss in retreat. Look at that Weird Boy walk. So, Kvek, he went to tier 3. That's a choice I'd say, unfortunately, is not that great, considering he went to tier 3. He does not really have the power to put out some kind of significant tier 3 unit. I mean, I guess if he saves up a little bit, he might be able to put, I don't know, commandos out on the field. Oh, but I mean, this is why those warp spiders are so good against orcs. As good as shooter boys are, they're probably the best ranged DPS you can get out of tier 1. But warp spiders, as a tier 2 ranged unit, are better at that than they are just better at that than the shooter boys. They do more damage, and their models are more durable. And Ekul is even keeping that Warboss just off that point. Ekul in a very good position now. Could put a Fire Prism out on the field soon. He could save up for an Avatar. He should put maybe another power generator, at least one down here. And, I mean, as long as he's holding this point, he could even put a node on this power farm. But we now have commandos out for Kvek. He is upgrading to get the Knob Leader, which frankly is a waste at this point. The Knob Leader has a rocket launcher, which will do some AV. Warp Spiders in a very bad position right now. They need to teleport across the wall to save themselves, and yes, they do. Oh! A direct rocket hit takes out that Warp Spider. One of those Warp Spiders down to 7 health, but just barely gets out of there. So, but otherwise, the commando on the rocket launch on the commando knob on this commando squad, I think an unnecessary upgrade at this point. Kvek is really hurting for power, and there are definitely other things he should really be spending that power on. A late game ranger squad. I don't entirely agree with that choice. It's not terrible, considering that it will do well against the shooter boys and the commandos, and just with the way Kvek has been losing units. He doesn't have a lot of more significant threats out than these units. But I mean, the reason I think the Rangers are not a good choice is just Ekul with the tech and the resource advantage he has. He should really just press that advantage to put out an Avatar, put out a Fire Prism, put out Seer Council. Especially Seer Council would also be, or even any of those other units, would be a lot better at dealing with any potential tier 2 or tier 3 threats that Kvek might put out on the field. The reason the Rangers would work out okay for now is just the fact that Kvek is right now still going with mostly weaker infantry squads. Although I'm guessing actually what he's doing is that he's getting the Rangers actually because he wants the detection, which in that sense I guess it's not that bad of a choice. And he is now getting that Fire Prism, which is a very good unit overall. But actually he does have to be very careful now about these commandos with rocket launchers, which will actually be very good. Ranger's getting far too close though. I think he wanted to go for a kinetic pulse. And he had to move around this wall, but he should have positioned them a little further back. Yeah, I mean, Rangers really have no reason to be getting into melee range with commandos or any other unit for that matter. Warp Spiders, yeah, at this point, they're not going to be winning fights with their current health. They should teleport up here, get that point, and then maybe go back to base. Ekul should at least put a power node up here. Now, all things considered, the Fire Prism is an extremely good unit, but I think just a little bit risky at this point with a commando knob on one of the commando squads and another commando squad that is getting the knob.
We are losing a victory.
So we'll see how well Ekul manages this Fire Prism, but unfortunately I foresee it, because I'm like a Farseer, I foresee it getting blown up by infiltrated commando knobs. Now, he did get that Ranger squad. One of the other choices that he actually has is that instead of getting a Ranger squad for detection, he could use the Farsight Global that the Farseer has for detection. Warp Spider's now in quite a bit of trouble. The blast from the Fire Prism is knocking over most of these units, but these commandos are pushing forward and actually doing quite well. Now, commandos Oh no, that's going to be really bad. That's going to be a dead Warp Spider squad, I think. Yes, one of the Warp Spiders goes down for Ekul, and I guess Kvek just satisfied with his victory there and actually just gets out of there. But Ekul using his webway gates to keep up the caps. He's got a double cap. And Kvek running a little bit low on victory points at 73 right now. These Dire Avengers are out of cover. They should get behind this barbed wire so they can get in cover. Kvek not paying attention to his shooter boys. We need a grenade on retreat to wipe that whole squad. Stop fleeting of foot. Just throw the grenade.
They turn us in upon ourselves.
Now, of course, it is very, very tough to time those retreat grenades. And to be honest, I mean, at least my personal experience is that there's really no exact measurement. It's really just pure judgment that comes from experience. And there are some people there are some players who are going to be extremely good at that. Myself, I played Space Marine as my original race, and I played Eldar kind of as a secondary race, but my main is Chaos. I'm not that great at the retreat grenades. I've certainly hit some nice ones, but it's definitely a skill that you will be really good at if you main either Eldar or Space Marine. Now we do have those Seer Council. Unfortunately, they're really attacking the wrong unit. Those Seer Council will absolutely be devastating against everything else. They should not go for the Warboss. Ekul has so much he can use to deal with the Warboss, between the Fire Prism, the Rangers, the Warp Spiders, the Dire Avengers. The Seer Council should ignore the Warboss and go for everything else. And Rangers are going to go down now. So Ekul, I think just maybe not quite paying attention to that. Uses that ability. He's actually switching out the rune armor now for the armor of the Asurian, though. Alright. Seer Council are in a good position now where they should be heading south so they can come down into a position for a flank. Especially with these commandos being at partial health. Where are those Seer Council? They are just idling at the top. And oh no, this could be a dead Fire Prism, taking too many hits. It is disrupting those commandos, and oh man, he needs to move those Seer Council down, no, south, get in the retreat path. Oh, and there goes the Fire Prism. If he can put those Seer Council in the retreat path of those commando knobs, or those commandos, he could definitely take out at least one of the squads. And with these Dire Avengers here as well, he could take out more than one. Oh no, a Rox! Love to Dako on top with a Rox on top of it. Gonna wipe out Warp Spiders. Warp Spiders just barely get out of there, so he almost kills his own commando squad, I think. No. Seer Council need to stop going after the Warboss. Alright, that's actually pretty smart by Ekul. Now there he actually baited out the stomp. And once that happens, the Seer Council actually should engage the Warboss. The Warboss, though, gets a special attack off anyway, and disrupts him anyway. But otherwise, as long as once that stomp is on cooldown, the Seer Council will actually hard counter that Warboss. And Kvek is running out of time. He did experience some nice victories, but he's only got 27 VPs left. He needs to get these Seer Council off the cap. And I think I don't know what he's going to do here. Warp Vomit actually gets those... No, it does not get the Seer Council off the cap. He needs to get them off the cap somehow. He's running out of time. And he still can't get them off the cap. It's now a 2 cap for Ekul. Shooter Boy's about to die. And it's now a double cap. Could that be the game for Lieutenant Ekul? Ekul now putting a Tier 3 Wraith Lord out on the field. Is that really the end of the game? Alright. I think... Oh no! Kvek! That's going to be the end of the game then. I think. Now, Commandos do cap 50% faster. Let's see if they can get the stop on that VP. No, they can't.
The enemy is claiming victory.
Unless, how fast do these things cap? It stops right there at 1 VP left. So Kvek is still kind of in this game. Let's see what happens. These infiltrated commando knobs need to shoot at the Wraith Lord. And this Warboss, I think, should get a Power Claw. Like now. He should upgrade while he's capping to get a Power Claw. Kvek is certainly being pretty sneaky with that commando play. Ekul, of course, I don't think he's using the Farsight Global. He's probably saving up for an Eldritch at this point. Kvek will at least get the cap off, so it will be a double cap for him. He's going to lose his Warboss in the process, though. And he will not have much time to get it back. He's going to try to get his commando knobs up here. His commando squad up here. He'll definitely get a decap off on these points. The commandos do now cap 50% faster. They're like tactical marines in that sense. Kvek staying in this game quite amazingly. And a little too much blobbing from Ekul. I guess he's maybe waiting for this webway gate to go up so that he can use it, put all those units inside, but he is just kind of sitting here and letting Kvek stay in this game. Double tank busters now out for Kvek. So those double tank busters will have a number of uses. Aside from helping to deal with that Farseer, I mean not the Farseer, the Wraith Lord, they will be able to disrupt units that are on caps. Foot of Gork! Now what Ekul really should do is put a webway gate over here and just go for a back cap on that natural VP. While this crazy fight's going on, as it is, Ekul's losing this fight. Where is that Wraith Lord? It's not doing anything. It needs to be up there. A time field goes down. Slowing down all these units, preventing them from using their abilities, but Ekul is still not capping. He should be capping with his Farseer in the middle of this engagement. He starts doing that, but I think he's at the point where he's going to lose this engagement, might even lose his Seer Council. He needs to get that Farseer off the cap, and he does get her off. You know, Ekul losing tons of units.
You shall have it. As it was stated.
And Ekul loses his Farseer. One of the things that's working out for Kvek right now is that he has invested a lot in disruption. He does, of course, he's got the Weird Boy, which can disrupt with his, first of all, with his basic attack. And there we go. Unfortunately, too late now, because these commandos and that Warboss will definitely majorly destroy those commandos. And now it's going to be a 2-to-1 for Kvek. 2-to-1 for Kvek. Victory points now taken down in his favor. Ekul is moving forward this Wraith Lord, but it's completely unsupported against. First of all, we have double tank busters. Although one tank buster squad. Oh no, call the boys! Everything back at full health. Blobs up here, so that call the boys keeping him in the game. Oh, and this Wraith Lord's going to be done. Meanwhile, we have an Autarch just idling in base. That Autarch, again, given how fast it is, could just run over here and should just go for that point, that natural VP. And we have, again, all that disruption coming out of Kvek. And I mean, Ekul is he's now using his Autarch to disrupt and work on this engagement, and his Autarch is now about to die, and he loses the Autarch. He's still going for that cap, and another Foot of Gork. Oh my god. Oh no. There's an Eldritch Storm. Oh, not a good Eldritch Storm. He saved up for that Eldritch Storm. But Kvek was paying attention, moved all of his units forward. And basically just avoided that Eldritch Storm. Ekul loses everything.
Have the field.
And that's it. There's no way Ekul can come back from that. Especially now that Kvek finally does have a real tier 3 unit coming out on the field. Some knobs right after all that. I mean, Ekul right now, he doesn't even have the red to put down a webway gate and even just go for a back cap with these Dire Avengers.
Our reinforcements are here.
So, VP's ticking down for Kvek. Cancels the knobs to go for a battle wagon.
The foe seeks to deprive us of a vital resource point.
We must save the lost ones.
Well, not a whole lot to say at this point, other than I don't know. Ekul hasn't conceded yet. Maybe he wants to try. Yes, I see what he's trying to do. And Kvek, unfortunately, he's not really. He should have left some kind of unit up to bodyguard that point. Especially, he should know just how many losses he inflicted on Ekul, and that even if Ekul tries this, Kvek should be able to at least guard that point. I mean, he could leave one commando squad right there, lob the rest around, and to intercept whatever other force Ekul has, which is nothing, and then that lone commando squad would still just win against the Dire Avengers. Dire Avengers going into the Webway Gate. They just want to run back to the craft world. It's now going to be a triple cap for Kvek. So this was a game that, I mean, it's clearly, if you're watching it, you know it wasn't the highest level game. It was sent to me supposed to be as a training for newer players. And definitely some things we saw here that could have been done better. Definitely in 1v1, the whole concept, or just the way 1v1 goes, where to some extent you do have to split your units up somewhat. Even if it's just splitting one unit off, so that you're not just blobbing up and moving around as one blob. There are times when keeping your units together is still desirable, but just whether it's setting up for flanks, going for back caps. A back cap could have one Ekul this game. Just things that are basically 1v1 exclusive skills that you may not always get from playing a lot of 2v2 and 3v3. They're skills that I'm personally rusty on because I don't play a lot of 1v1 these days. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the cast. Crazy, a little sloppy, but crazy. Have a good night.